It starts here. We teach our kids what government is, what the Constitution is, and listen, those of us in here that are of faith, it's God. And the freedom we're asking to have, the freedom our founders intended us to have, is all based on a virtuous people. Once people aren't virtuous anymore, it goes to heck in a handbasket. And that's when you see people running up and down the streets, busting out windows, because it's all about them, and it's not about God.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to touch on, and then we'll open it up to questions. So be thinking about those questions. This is a great opportunity to have some great discussion. But the heartbeat bill. He's touched on how it kind of got treated, and you were doing it for 8 years. So the good thing is, when I came in January of 19, the heartbeat bill was on a fast track. They had done the hard work. 8 years of hard work between the Senate and the House. Well, the new General Assembly, it was a top priority. And so it was fast tracked because all the legwork was done. So I came in January, and in March we were voting on that. And I'll never forget it because it did get real. The security guards came in, the cap security, and they talked to us that do not take anything, do not touch anybody. And it was truly that in your face, they were giving their opinion, but they were not being respected. And I'm going to say a little humor because I'm a humorous kind of guy. But the state rep north of us is Shane Wilkins. And we were walking together, and people were screaming at us, and they were giving us the waving with the finger, and they were going, Shane, 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 just constantly. I mean, that chant went on for hours, or probably 2 hours while we went through the legislative process on the floor. We could hear it out in the hall. And we were walking through there, and then we came in, and I sat down in my chair, and Shane Wilkins sits in front of me, and he said, what do you think of that? I said, wow, it got real. It really did get real. He said, yeah, they were chanting my name. Shane, Shane. Okay, only you would have that kind of humor. But anyway, it was awesome to make that vote. As soon as we got up there, I'm as we're both as pro-life as they come. There's stories in my life. I was adopted at birth. A high school relationship. I was adopted at birth. Mom and dad, they both passed since. But at the age of 21, my adopted mother, or my biological mother, reached out to me, and so I've had a relationship with both my biological parents. She lives in Vermont, he lives in Canton, and they've both been to Cherry Fork at Mom and Dad's house. So it was a big, great story. But to that point, 2 years after me, or 3 years, she had an abortion. So me, people say, well, how can you be that pro-life? I said, well, that's personal. It's personal. Because I was this close. Not standing here with you. Anyway. Great time for questions.
What you got, Tony?
There's not a bad question. There's not a bad anything. I think we should just very casual have some good conversation if that goes along with what you want to do.
That would be fine. I mean, it's really what everyone wants.
We got a question. Go ahead.
Hold on.
It's a federal law against the starting of peace. It's a federal law against the starting of peace.
So, with that, and dealing with the state capitol, the folks, the liberal folks who are in charge of Columbus, and the city of Columbus is pretty much all the mayor's liberal, and they said, yeah, we're going to look the other way. We're going to let them destroy the state capitol. We're going to let them rant and rave and disturb the peace. That's a choice within the city limits of Columbus. I've had local government officials, both in Adams and Sept County, said, hey, if Columbus doesn't want the state capitol, bring it down to Southern Ohio, because we'll protect it. Yeah, to your point, there is, but it's local control.
And the media casts this a certain way, and the politicians feel pressure and all that business. I just saw something a couple weeks ago. It was a CNN reporter, and and he was talking about the mostly peaceful protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And behind him was just nothing but flames. You know, the people are watching that channel saying, oh, it must be mostly peaceful. I can't account for the flames. But the media is completely off the reservation here. I have no idea what their connection to America is. It just baffles me. So you got to be careful what you read. And then if you get on social media, be careful what you forward. Because people on the other side think, okay, I'm going to put this out here. So-and-so is going to do this, and it's not right, and they're going to look like an idiot. You know, check your quote. If someone says Thomas Jefferson said something, go look for it and make sure he did before you send it forward. Right? And so all that stuff. And these memes. I've never heard of a meme before. A meme is like that little political cartoon that's got like they're going to say something funny or say something mean or whatever. And then both sides, whether you're liberal or progressive or conservative, both sides carpet bomb each other with these memes. Carpet bomb. Wow. Well, no one changes their mind with a meme. You know? And so if you look at my Facebook, you're going to see some humor, but it's usually not at someone's expense. Usually. And you're not going to see anything mean and hateful. And I try my best not to put anything on there that's not right. I make mistakes occasionally. God bless me, I'm a human just like everybody else. But try your best to speak truth and to speak from your heart. And, you know, is it against the law to throw bricks through people's home windows and their business? Yes, it is. And that's not the America we grew up in, and we got to fix it.
What I don't understand is when that homeowner protects their home, then they're dead.
Yeah, they got in trouble. And I think some citations have been written against those folks. I'm not an expert on that at all. But that sort of thing doesn't really happen around here, does it? If someone wants to come up and tell you they're going to run in your house and eat your peanut butter and jelly, it ain't going to happen. You know, and in fact, we got a fairly low breaking and entering rate in Scioto County, and I think over here too, unless they know you're unarmed. Well, who in their right mind would come in your window? You'd have to just about be totally cracked in your head to come through somebody's window here.
Yeah, I want to make mention of Paul Brown. Paul just came in with some pizzas.
Thank you, Paul.
Hey, all right, Paul.
Thank you.
Paul served us fought for our freedoms in the military. Paul's a business owner here in West Union. David Murford just left because it was getting ready to rain. They were on their motorcycles, and David and Paul and I were all in the same class just a couple years ago.
And he hangs up all the veteran signs in all your towns.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question, yes, sir.
I have two questions. They can both be answered yes or no.
Everybody here, come in.
I'm screaming. You talked about the city of Columbus, not to badmouth them, but they would not defend the state capitol building. Isn't the state highway patrol have the responsibility for state-owned property? And did they do anything?
So, it didn't make the news, but the state capitol itself is the state highway patrol. And I will tell you, I know firsthand, I've got to know a number of the folks that serve in the Capitol with the Highway Patrol. And there was a gentleman that busted through a window and jumped through and went into the state Capitol. He went right back out that window in a big hurry. The same window he came in a big hurry. Out he went. So, yes, inside they did. But that's where they said protect the building internally, and the outside obviously folks.
And you will be seeing some prosecutions come from all that.
Second question. Mandate a law.
Is mandate a law?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. So if it's not been enacted by the legislators, we don't have to follow a mandate. Is that correct?
I am not an attorney and I don't play one on TV. So I don't want to get you in any trouble.
It wouldn't be the first time.
But a law is a law and a mandate is something else.
Recommendation.
So yeah, intimidation is a key word. And the senator touched on, I respect the governor. I like some of the things he's done. I respect the position as governor. I do not agree at all with where we went during this pandemic, at all. I mean, I think we were all on board right out of the gate. You know, that first week, we didn't know. We need data. You know, week 2, we need data. Well, week 3, we started having data. I've said it too many times. They said, well, we're going to flatten the curve and we're going to let our hospitals prepare. Folks, I was saying this numerous times. I put it in Southern Ohio terms. I said, you can't find a patient in a hospital with a search warrant in Southern Ohio. There's nobody there. So, you know, with this scare tactic that went into place, we totally disagree with it. We've pushed some limits to take authority away. You know, the problem is it has to be signed by the governor. The problem is we have to have veto proof on some of those things. And both chambers struggle with overriding the veto.
Did they try to impeach him?
So there was a bill that was dropped to impeach the governor. We watched what went on in Washington, D.C. with him. Is impeachment the way to take care of this problem? In my opinion, no, it's not. You know, we can lock down the Senate, the House, and impeachment hearings and everything else. You know, the way the law is now, he is followed within the executive branch, teetered on the line of the duties of the executive branch. Do we need to work on some of those things of the Constitution? Yes, we do after this. There is no doubt. But in my mind, and I think the Senator, I think you touched on it, the impeachment was not a productive measure to go through with what we were doing now.
Only 3 people voted for it.
Only 3 people signed on to the bill. The bill's never been introduced. The individual, I know the individual very well, that introduced that bill. I think he did it for personal reasons. He's term limited out, and he's looking for other options. That's my opinion, and that's okay. What's that?
They said on 700 WLW is personal.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think your representative or your senator are going to be introducing bills that go into personal agendas. And obviously, he felt that people were calling him to do that. That is not a process. We saw the kangaroo report in Washington, D.C. at the federal level when they tried to impeach Trump. To me, that's not a direction that was going to be productive for the state of Ohio in that area. Nothing to add.
Yes, sir. Do you disagree with the charges in the articles of impeachment? Do you disagree with the charges in the articles of impeachment?
I have a lot of issues with the direction and the overreach, in my mind, of the executive branch that the governor has taken during this pandemic. Absolutely.
I'm for opening Ohio back up, and the reason why I'm for opening Ohio back up is because when we went through this process, if this virus was the virus that was really going to wipe out the human race, give the governor, give the president, give whoever we need to give the power to defend us and take care of us, because we can't have 350 million people making decisions. We need someone to protect us. That's the purpose of government. But it turns out that it wasn't the killer of the human race, and it turns out that people at local levels, have brains and can figure things out. Anybody tells you, I don't think you should be able to make your own decisions, or you should be able to keep your customers safe, or keep your people safe at church, they're wrong. We're just as smart here as anybody anywhere. And we can take care of ourselves. And if we need help, we can ask for it. In the meantime, you don't shut down businesses because this one's not essential. Who gets to say something's not essential in America? Nobody. Right? Take away a person's livelihood because you're non-essential, you got to close. And that was a mandate, right? And yet it closed somebody. And then you say, okay, you're essential, but you're not as essential as that guy. And so the public health department's giving you a hard time. Or let's say you sell lawnmowers, and Walmart sells lawnmowers. Walmart is okay to be open, but you're not. I disagree with that 100%. And I'm for opening things back up and for people making decisions about how to keep their family safe, their parishioners safe, their flock safe, their customers safe, their students safe. We can do that.
If you agree with the charges, how are you holding him accountable but letting him get away with breaking the laws?
So, from a standpoint of, there's legislation in place to do pushback.
Your opinion is what we're after.
Right. There is legislation that the House has sent to the Senate. The Senate's worked on legislation as well. Now, keep in mind, we have to be veto-proof, knowing that moving ahead. So the process has to be voted out of the House, voted through the Senate, and then it has, so that we know the governor is going to veto it. So if it's not veto-proof, then we are very challenged between both chambers.
So my opinion is already there. I had a bill on the floor of the Senate that passed. It was a resolution, and it was for constitutional integrity. And in that bill, I said, you know, and now get this. This is really interesting. I said on the floor of the Senate something like, how sad is it in America when I have to introduce a resolution to remind a branch of government that we have to abide by the Constitution? Now, I had pushback from conservative Republicans about doing it. Not everybody voted for it. I was actually chastised for it by some of my colleagues. They are so far from the process, so far from Adams County, Ohio, and a common citizen that says, you're so smart, you have no common sense. You've lost touch with me. Now, your opinion is what counts. How many of you have written letters to me saying, Terry, pass this on to the governor? How many of you have been there in those hearing rooms? Oh, it's too far. Yeah, it is. I'm telling you. The other guys are there. It's not Brian Baldridge. He's already on paper saying he's in favor of this stuff. I'm a co-sponsor of the very thing we talked about, trying to limit those powers. And I have spoken openly on the floor of the Senate about how I feel about this. I said, this is the first time in American history that a health crisis has been taken over by a political entity, and now that they have, they're not going to want to give it back. And we're trying to get it back, but what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do that? I'm one of 33, and what I get to do is introduce legislation and lead people in a constructive way. I'm not going out and breaking windows. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm standing up for what I believe is your opinion, and I'm voicing it as loud as I can and as respectfully as I can.
I don't respond to that. I got lost here somewhere.
You want to grab it up? You think of another
I
one?
feel like I'm being politics.
I think you got it right. Go ahead.
They were talking about the ground.
Yep.
Good. You brought it up a little bit. I just wanted to get your opinion, both of your opinions. When the Speaker of the House was appointed,
I can't remember the number either.
The crony of our Republican Democratic governor. Is that true? Was that a rumor? Is he going to stand up for his conservative values?
In my opinion, absolutely yes. I believed in the previous speaker that his values and morals aligned with me. He had great visions for rural Ohio and Appalachia, but right up until he did something wrong is when that I did not align myself with the previous speaker. So Speaker Cupp, as I stated, he's a law and order guy. You couldn't ask for a person, and the senator, Speaker Cupp was he was a senator when Senator Johnson was in the House. So he's worked with him that way too, across chambers. But, you know, he is a law and order guy. He's what we need in Columbus right now. He was voted in with strong support. I do not believe he is a crony. He's been around this stuff. He gets it. Serving in the Supreme Court, he was able to interpret law and interpret, truly serving on African Americans. So, I'm excited about the direction we go. Now, if he doesn't stay in line with where my morals and values and direction goes, I will stand up and make my voice known. That's the job that we do. But today, I'm excited about a new direction with kind of the cloud that went over the house. That's unacceptable. When government breaks the trust of people, that is, it's disrespect. It's terrible. And to bring in somebody who brings law and order, who brings that background, who's serving in the Supreme Court, he came from local government, he's in rural Ohio. I think he'll do great. But we're there to make sure of that and the direction that we move forward. So to answer your question, I knew that kind of went out on Facebook again. I kind of just wrote it off of Facebook as we talked about. So I'm excited about the direction we go. I think our morals and values for Southern Ohio and the district and the Senator's district are in great shape with Speaker Cox.
Sir.
Yes, sir. I want to ask, approximately in 2013, there was legislation that went through that gave the power over to the Board of Health and stuff in Ohio. Is there any steps that's going to take that back?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we've been working on that sort of legislation. It's pending, but getting it moved to the floor and getting it to the point where it's veto-proof, that's another deal. Now, there's an election coming up. After that, there's something called lame duck. Everything changes in lame duck. People who thought they were going to get elected, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But all of a sudden, some people on the way out the door, some people coming in, and the votes can suddenly change. And so I'm not saying it's going to wait till lame duck, but that may be when it happens.
Yeah, but the reason I think it bothers a lot of us here is that they supposedly have the power in a certain situation they come in and take their guns in the area.
Yeah.
That's still the BS.
Yeah.
I think everybody agrees on
If
that.
you can do one thing, you can do another. If you diminish one right, you diminish another. We're Americans. We stand on our own 2 feet. We think for ourselves. We, have the right to be faithful. We have the right to be virtuous. We also have the right to do terrible things and be thrown in jail. And that's the rowdy bunch we are. And let me tell you this. One of the things I noticed when I was a county coroner and people talking about all these pill mills and everybody getting addicted and all the terrible things that were happening, I told people back then, this was back in 2002, when I had my first case. I did an autopsy and toxicology. I wanted to find out what actually killed this poor person. And it was opioids and benzodiazepines. And so I started documenting that. And I told people then, I said, it's not just this. This is the gold standard human addiction. If you're addicted to opioids, opiates, heroin, fentanyl, it's all the same thing. This is something people can't just quit. It's going to be horrible, but not just for them, because God bless them, a bunch of them are going to go to jail, a bunch of them are going to die. Horrible. It's a bad road to go. But their poor little kids are going to suffer. They're going to go hungry. And their grandma and their grandpa on fixed incomes are going to wind up raising kids because his parents are going to be dead. And what I told people then was, I said, we got a critical mass of goodness that's getting smaller and smaller. Evil is always there. It's always there. We'll never be rid of it on this earth. But we've always had a virtuous people deserving of rights and freedoms, able to stand up and voice their opinion in a peaceful way and get their neighbors to come with them. That can start in church, it can start in school, it can start in a group like this. Never, ever be disrespectful. I want nobody here to ever raise a hand in anger against someone else unless you're defending yourself, or your family, or your property. I don't want you to go out and bust a window just to make a point. I don't want you to go out and call people awful names just to make your point. I want you to be the good American citizens you are and reignite that light of goodness and expand it. It starts here, not in Columbus, not in Washington, D.C., and you just got to take a stand, and you got to be united, and you got to quit this, he hurt my feelings, or this guy can't possibly have a good opinion. That gets you nowhere. Anybody can run up and kick somebody in the shin and poke them in the eye. Don't do that to me. I'm tough when I look. But it's easy, right?
Bad seems to prevail.
It does.
How do we get our word?
We have abandoned the playing field. So like I said, when in Adams County, when those 10 commandments were taken out of the church, we're all out of the school, we're law-abiding citizens. I guess that's it then. What would Martin Luther King have done in Alabama in 1962? Did he quit? No. Christians need to stand up and say, these are our values. We love our country. We have family members serving in the military. We have veterans who we, respect that live here. This is our country. We stand up for the flag and we say the Pledge of Allegiance like we mean it. You have to take a stand. If I'm there by myself, someone's waving their finger at me, that's all there is. And that's all they hear and all they see. And what's the media report? They report just like you think they do. Turn on CNN, it's mostly peaceful protests.
And to touch on your point about, you said let's say 2013 law. So we all remember what happened back in the primary. And to play it out from a legislative standpoint, basically there was the governor said, okay, we're canceling the primary election. The House of Representatives, 2 members of the House with leadership sued the governor. We went into a court. They opened up a court. The judge came in. That night. So this was all planned out. Our phones, we were constantly in communication with Columbus during that. So they sued. They said, no, you can't do that. Can't do it. So then they went back. And to your point, this is what I was making. The law that they used to shut down the election was a 08 law that they found during, they could declare a pandemic and it gave the authority to the Ohio Department of Health. 1908, really? But that's how far back we went to stop that election.
But on the other hand, when you dug into it, you found out they didn't actually cancel the election because they weren't able to. And so then they wanted to have it in June, and we said, 0 chance of that. We're going to have it sooner than that. It's messed up. We're going to fix it as quick as we can. And the best solution after that was to hold it when we did. Otherwise, when June came, would they have said it's any better? I'm not sure they would. And so we reasserted our legislative right to set the election. But it wasn't canceled. It was postponed. But it was presented as like, we're not doing this.
And to reassure everybody, that will not happen November 3rd. We will be voting
in person. And now they got to have poll workers. The dilemma on that is poll workers. Someone's got to show up and work the polls. There are going to be places all over Ohio where people are going to say, I'm terrified, I'm staying in my house, I'm not coming out, I'm not going to work the polls, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do it. I'm predicting we'll get plenty of volunteers here to have the polls open. God bless you if you do that.
Regarding the first talk, people walk into the Board of Elections and do your own voting with them.
As soon as it actually, whatever the date is, and I think that might be it, but I'm not sure. But yeah, there's no place in the world easier to vote than in Ohio. When I was a kid, you showed up on election day, or you didn't show up, and you didn't have an absentee, you didn't have anything. If you actually had a broken leg, they might write you an absentee ballot, maybe. You showed up. Now, it's so easy to vote, it's ridiculous. If people aren't voting, they just don't want to. And so it's going to be in person on the day, and we still got all this other stuff leading up to it. You can walk in, vote, you can mail it in, drop it in a box, all kinds of things.
The key is whatever way you decide to vote, make sure if you do it by mail, make sure you get your ballot at home, you fill it out, and send it back immediately. That's the key. Because we've all seen, we've all heard concerns about the mail system. If nobody works in the postal service, I'm sure you do it great if you do. But, we've seen those concerns and those flags that come up. And I want to do a shout out. We were able today, and I'm not, some of you know Irwin Farms over by Cherry Fork has a corn maze. And his corn maze, his outline was Vote 2020. That's cool. That's great, So I asked Mark, and we're good friends on the local volunteer fire department in Cherry Fork. I said, do you care if we run that up the flagpole and see? Well, we had the Secretary of State, the Secretary, Frank LaRose, came today, and we cut a ribbon opening up his corn maze. And, those great things, and Frank's originally from Northern Ohio, But we got into Adams County today, and brought his girls. I think they were in the corn maze for a couple hours. But to that point is, he was adamant that the voting will go on. It will be in person. There will be all kinds of opportunities, and this will not occur November 3rd as far as the problems we saw in the primary. What's that? Yeah, if you do. I do not know. Yeah, I don't know that. But to your point, being a poll worker, thank you for that. That's awesome. But I would encourage other folks because I don't want, I'm going to say the other folks on the other side of the aisle, from my belief, saying, well, look at what's going on. There's no poll workers. We can't have a fair election. So if anybody has that, that's a great duty. It's a way to participate coming up in November.
And here's another way that you're heard. You got to vote for conservative legislators. Listen, you can probably go to my opponents on the other side of the aisle, and you can probably find some people that are pretty solid Second Amendment that don't vote that way. You probably can. I know a lot of Democrats where I live that are a solid Second Amendment. But let me tell you, if they try to vote Second Amendment in Columbus, they're going to have trouble. They may get primary, they may not come back. And then it's not just the Second Amendment, it's everything. It's the First Amendment. Your right to assemble peacefully. Your right to religious worship. Your freedom of speech, the ability to stand up here and ask your state senator and your state representative questions. This stuff is sacred. And when I say sacred, Ryan, I don't just say sacred, because I believe in my very heart there would be no United States of America if it weren't brought forth, inspired, if God's breath didn't work through the Constitutional Convention that gave us the United States. So our Bill of Rights, our Constitution, as it was originally intended, is sacred. And we've got to vote for people who believe that. Judges also. There are two judges that you've got